Hey everyone, it's Peg here. Today I'm bringing you an Arknights Endfield video where I'm gonna help you decide which free 6-star weapon you should choose, because the game actually gives us a couple of weapon selector boxes for free. Basically, once you complete a few early milestones in Arknights Endfield, you'll receive two different selector boxes that allow you to choose one out of several 6-star weapons. So in this video, I'll help you figure out which one is the best for you, and at the same time I'll also talk a bit about the weapon gacha system, so you don't make mistakes that you might later regret. This is a very important video, so I highly recommend watching it carefully. Let's get into it. Before getting into the free weapon boxes themselves, I want to quickly talk about the Battle Pass, because it's actually relevant here. The Battle Pass has 3 tracks. The top track, which is completely free and available to everyone, the bottom track, which is the paid one, costing around $10, and the middle track, which you can unlock by paying 28 Orgiometries, which you can get by playing the game. If you fully complete the middle track, not only do you get a ton of upgrade materials and resources, but the game will actually refund 32 Orgiometries, meaning you get 4 more than you spent. Orgiometries are these resources here, these brown orb items. You can use them either for gacha pulls or to refill stamina. Most people, I guess, will use them for the gacha pulls, but you can and should also use them to unlock the middle Battle Pass track. My recommendation is simple: always keep at least 28 Orgiometries saved so you can unlock the middle Battle Pass track. Don't be greedy and spend everything on pulls, because you'll regret it later, when a new Battle Pass comes out and you can't afford it. Now, why I'm talking about the Battle Pass in this weapons video? Because when you complete either the middle track or the paid track, you get a free weapon selector box that lets you choose one out of 3 6-star weapons. These are not the free boxes this video is mainly about, these are the Battle Pass boxes, but they're still important. The weapons in this Battle Pass box are designed for the current promotional characters of the patch. At this launch, patch 1.0, that means Levatain, Gilberta and Yvonne. Each one has a corresponding weapon in this box. However, these are not their best weapons. Their true best-in-slot weapons come from pulling on the weapon banners. These Battle Pass weapons are more like their second best or sometimes third best options, and they're basically only useful for those specific characters. So, if you pull for a promotional character like Levatain, I strongly recommend pulling on the weapon banner to get their signature weapon, but if you're unlucky, or imagine you're pulling for Levatain's banner and you randomly get Yvonne instead, which can happen, and you never planned to get her, you'll probably won't have enough currency to also pull for Yvonne's weapon. That's where these Battle Pass weapons boxes become useful. You can save them and later grab her weapon from there. So my advice is to not open these boxes immediately, save them until you're sure which character you actually need them for. All of this matters for the free weapon boxes we're about to discuss, because maybe one weapon is great for Yvonne, but if you already plan to get Yvonne's Battle Pass weapon, then choosing this weapon for her is a waste. In that case, you'd rather pick something else. Now let's talk about the 2 free weapon selector boxes, not counting the Battle Pass ones. The first free box is the story banner. As you progress through the story, the game gives you pulls for a special banner. You can do up to 40 pulls on it. Once you finish all 40 pulls, you are guaranteed a non-promotional 6-star character, and you also receive a weapon selector box. This box contains weapons that are generally the second best options for each of those non-promotional 6-star characters. For example, the second best option for Ember, Pogranichnik, Li Feng, and so on. The other weapon selector box is obtained by increasing your authority level, which is basically your account level. As you level up, level 10, 15, 20 and so on, you get rewards and permanent banner pulls. When you reach authority level 45, you will receive another 6-star weapon selector box, with different weapons for your choice. Now let's go through both boxes and talk about which weapons are worth choosing. I'll start with the Authority level 45 weapon box. I'll start with the weapon I would never pick, which is White Nova, this blue sword. Why? Because it's a weapon for Levatain, and right now it's basically her third best option. If you have Levatain, you should pull for her signature weapon, or if not, use the Battle Pass weapon, which is already better than this. So choosing White Nova here is a complete waste. Another option I don't really recommend is Exemplar. It's the Pan best option, but the Pan is worse than the Administrator as a physical DPS, and the Administrator is free. So unless you like a lot the Pan, I wouldn't pull it, and also the Pan already has a very strong, solid 5-star weapon, so it's really not that necessary for him either. Now the remaining 3 weapons are all good choices. The pistol is a very strong weapon for gunslingers in general. It works well with Fluorit, Wolfguard and Yvonne. For Yvonne and Wolfguard, it's their second best weapon. If you pull for Yvonne, I still recommend going for her signature, but if you can't, the Battle Pass weapon is not too far away from this pistol over here. For Fluorit, this would technically be her best weapon if you play her as a DPS. However, most players will use Fluorit as a support for Yvonne or for Last Rite, and in that role you don't fully benefit that much from the damage bonus of this weapon, so in practice is often not that valuable for her. Jet, the spear, is a very strong option. It's the best weapon in the game for Aviwena, who is the strongest electric damage dealer in the game. Yes, Aviwena is only a 5-star and she might get power crept eventually, but right now she is very strong, and as a DPS character they benefit a lot from pulling their weapons, so having the best in-slot weapon for a meta DPS is a very solid investment. Another excellent option is Detonation Unit, which is a support-oriented weapon. It's the best weapon for Antal, who is a very strong support for electric and fire teams, and it's also the second best option for Perlica and Shai-Hi, so this weapon is best in slot for a character and still very useful for others, which makes it extremely flexible. My top choice would be between Detonation Unit and Jet, depending if you want to main Aviwena or not, with the pistol also being a very solid option. Now let's move on to the other free weapon selector box, which is the one you get from the special story banner. As you progress to the main story, the game will gradually give you pulls for this banner. In total you can do 40 pulls on it. This banner is special because once you complete all 40 pulls it disappears, and at that point two things happen. First, you are guaranteed a non-promotional 6-star character, and second, you receive a weapon selector box that allows you to choose 1 out of 5 different 6-star weapons. Now, it's very important to understand what these weapons are. In general, all these weapons in the box are designed as second best options for the non-promotional 6-star characters. At the most basic level, you could do something very simple here. You select the box of the operator you just pulled on this banner. For example, if you get Li Feng, you pick Li Feng's weapon. Let's start with the one I would not recommend at all, and this one is Ancient Finesse. This weapon is the second best option for Ember. The problem is that it's a very defensive-oriented weapon. I would recommend picking offensive weapons for offensive characters first. On top of that, Ember already has a very solid 5-star defensive weapon that would work perfectly fine. The second weapon I would be less interested in picking is Li Feng's weapon. Don't get me wrong, this is Li Feng's second best weapon, and it works well on him. But that's the problem, it only works on him, and just like with Ember, Li Feng can do fine with 5-star weapons too. Now the remaining 3 weapons are all good. Let's start with Sundered Prince. This weapon is the second best option for Last Rite. Last Rite is a DPS character, and that alone makes this weapon more valuable, because DPS characters benefit much more from having strong weapons early on. The reason this weapon is especially important is that Last Rite's 5-star weapon options are not very good, so if you plan on using Last Rite seriously, and you're not planning to pull for her personal weapon banner, then picking Sundered Prince from this box, in my opinion, is a very strong decision. Next we have Oblivion. This is actually a best in slot weapon, but for Perlica. As Ardelia already gets her best weapon for free, it would be meaningless to give us a worse weapon for her in this weapon box selector, so they gave us Perlica's best in slot. So if you want to play Perlica, this is an excellent choice, just keep in mind that this weapon is only useful for her. Finally, we have Turnmid Cutter. This is the second best weapon for Pogranichnik, and even though he has some other 6-star weapons that are good for him, he doesn't have really good 5-star weapon. So if you plan to use him, pulling this weapon could be very solid. On top of that, this weapon is also good for Akekuri and Arknights. Even though they have other good 5-star weapons, pulling Turnmid Cutter could be a good option for all these characters. Now that we covered the free weapon selector boxes, let's talk properly about the weapon gacha system, because this is another area where it's very easy to make mistakes if you don't understand how it works. In Arknights Endfield, you can pull on the weapon banner that corresponds to the current promotional character. For example, at the beginning of the game, you'll be able to pull on the weapon banner for Levathane. When you pull one of these banners, there are 2 main things that can happen. If you're lucky, you'll get the promotional weapon for that character, for example, Levathane's weapon if you're pulling on Levathane's banner, but if you lose the rate up, instead of getting the promotional weapon, you'll receive a non-promotional 6-star weapon. Here's the important part that a lot of people miss. At least for now, these banners cannot drop the best weapons for non-promotional characters. So from these banners you cannot get things like the best weapon for Last Raid, Pogranichnik, and so on. If you want those best in slot weapons, you need to pull for their specific weapon banners, which are listed separately a bit further down in the weapon banner menu. Let's talk about numbers. Every single pull on a weapon banner has a 4% chance to give you a 6-star weapon, which is extremely high. Because of this, you'll see a lot of 6-star weapons very often, and honestly, it can be even surprising. Even so, the game has a pity system in place. If you reach 40 pulls on a weapon banner without getting a 6-star weapon, the game guarantees it. And by the time you reach 80 pulls, if you still haven't obtained a promotional weapon, the game will guarantee it for you. Now, there's something very important you need to understand about the odds. When you get a 6-star weapon, there's no 50-50 like character banners. Instead, the split is 25-75. That means you only get a 25% chance to get the promotional weapon you actually want, and a 75% chance to get a different no promotional 6-star weapon. That might sound crazy, but statistically speaking, if you do some quick math, by the time you reach around 40 total pulls, you're sitting at roughly 50% chance of having obtained the promotional weapon already. So one of the most important things to know about weapon banners in this game is that weapon banner pity does not carry over between banners. So let's say you do 70 pulls on Levatein's weapon banner, and then that banner ends. When Gilberta's weapon banner starts, you do not keep that pity. You go straight to pull number 1. It doesn't matter how close you were to a guaranteed drop, everything resets. Because of that, I strongly recommend that you only pull on weapon banners when you're fully committed. Now let's talk about direct weapon purchases, because this is another system that can be confusing. In the shop, you can spend arsenal coins to obtain weapons directly. For reference, a 10 pull on a promotional banner costs around 2000 arsenal coins. In the weapon shop, you'll see rotating selector of weapons of different rarities, like 6-star, 5-star and 4-star weapons. The most important part here is that you can directly buy a guaranteed 6-star weapons for 2480 credits. Compared to doing a random 10 pull, this is actually a very good price. However, and this is a big however, these weapons are not exclusive. The exact same weapons can drop when you lose the rate up on promotional weapon banners. Because of that, if you are a free-to-play player, I do not recommend buying weapons directly from this shop. If you do, you will very quickly run out of arsenal coins and won't have enough resources to pull on promotional banners, which are far more important. On the other hand, if you are a paying player and you have excess arsenal coins, then yes, it can make sense to buy a specific weapon when you really need it and you're sure they're going to get value out of it. At the very bottom of the shop, there's also a permanent list of weapons that you can buy at any time. These weapons are always available, but once again they can also appear naturally as non-promotional drops, so spending currency here is generally not recommended unless you're a spender. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to explain. If you follow these recommendations, you should be able to make safe, informed decisions with your free weapon selectors and avoid wasting resources. That's all for today's. I hope this guide helped you out. Take care, see you soon, and be careful with those pulls.